G'day YouTube. It's a beautiful, warm, sunny autumn day here in Sydney, and I thought I'd bring you along doing a repot video on an incredibly root-bound, overdue. See here, this is my female nepenthes rokko. It's not the EP one, it's originated out of Japan, I believe. It's the original. Now, if you've seen or been watching my backyard tours, it's usually on the fence over there, and I recently decided it was time to cut this back, give it a repot, freshen it up a bit. I've done quite a bit of breeding with this over the last few years, and decided it was time for a bit of a change up for it. So you can see there, it's got a nice new growth there. I said leave one growth with one picture on it. This one I cut back, but that'll probably send out a new one shortly. But I cut about 30 meters of vine off this. It was absolutely insane. So, and I imagine it'll get back there in a couple of years quite easily. This thing it grows so easily, doesn't care about the conditions, the weather, or anything really. So you can see here, it's in an old, looks like a mix of sphagnum, maybe some cocoa chips in there, perlite, some old fertilizer pellets, maybe some orchid bark. I'm not even sure what it is. I think this has been in this pot for about 4 or 5 years now. So I'm going to have to give this a hard repot. I'll wash the roots down and try and freshen the media right up. You don't have to cut your plants back before a hard repot. This one was just so out of control and it was taking over other plants. So I decided it was time for this one. Anyway, I'll bring you over to the try to do that. You can see here I've got my new mix ready to go. So a mixture of medium and fine cocoa chips and a whole heap of jumbo perlite. Now I tried to aim for about 50-50 for most of my mixes. And you can see here I'm putting it into an absolutely massive pot with the plan that I do not want to repot this again anytime soon. So I'll just get you into the tripod here. You can see, and hopefully you can see what I'm working on. And the ground's not too level along here, unfortunately. That should do it. Get the hose out of the way. Alright, I'll just get this plant tie off first. Get rid of the hanger. Now, I do not suggest leaving nepenthes in the same mix for this long, particularly with things like sphagnum that break down and can get a bit manky and affect the health of your plant. Luckily, this rokko is just an absolute tank. Some sort of cocoon stuck on there. And it just doesn't seem to mind anything that you do. So, first step is remove the pot. Add an ant's nest in there. Now you can see there that it is completely root bound. I'll bring you over here. That is absolutely chockers full of roots. Now I am going to lose some of these trying to clean the media off. There's no way around that. If you've been using cocoa chips, I believe if they're not breaking down, I can see the sphagnum in here is definitely starting to break down, but cocoa chips, stuff like that doesn't break down as much. You can get away with just transferring this. I'd probably still loosen the roots a bit, but you could transfer it into fresh media. Alright, so I've got the hose here, and I'll just set up a seedling tray just to try and catch some of the media and make less of a mess. But as you can see, it's a bit chaotic out here. I've been super busy with repotting cuttings, seedlings. A lot of my personal plants have needed repotting recently, and there's still a whole lot more to do. There you go. probably a bit stronger than I wanted. But just trying to use the hose to break down and separate all this. I probably should have actually soaked this in a bucket for a while before doing this. I'll break it down, but you can see there, all the nasty old moss is starting to separate away. And you just want to take your time with this. You don't want to rush it and damage the plant more than you have to. And some plants really, really don't like their roots disturbed. I believe Edwardsiana is one. I just repotted mine the other day, so hopefully it doesn't sulk too much. But I've seen, particularly in larger plants like this and more mature plants, when they've been in their pot for a long time, it can really set them back. Now, as I said, this plant is absolutely tough as nails, so I imagine it's not going to take it as hard as others. I think what I might do is actually cut the video here, and I'm going to attack this, and then I'll bring you guys back once I've cleaned this up a bit. So I'll see you in a minute. All right, we're back. Now, that was a lot harder than expected. It's taken me a good 10 minutes there. You can see there, it definitely lost some roots. Now, looking at them, there's a lot of delicate, old-looking roots in there that I suspect had a bit of root rot starting. So I think I've got to this just in time before I started having real troubles. I'll bring you over. You can see the old, I suppose you'd almost call it a trunk. It's starting to look a bit like a bonsai here. But all those old big roots and the main root structures there, you can see there the loose old roots that were starting to rot, falling apart. But obviously this plant hadn't minded too much. But as I said, I think if I'd left it too much longer, I was going to get some real issues here. You can see I didn't quite get in all the nooks and crannies. There's still some moss in there. But to get that out, I'd have to just destroy the root system completely. So I didn't go that far. So I'll sort the trays out. Bring my pot over. Bit of old moss fell in there. So I'm just going to fill up the pot. There is a little bit of moisture in this cocoa chips already. So it's not bone dry, but it's not, I haven't purposely wet it down with the hose. It was just sort of pre-moistened from when I soaked it a couple of weeks ago, and it sits out in the rain. So nice and clean. I should have mentioned this earlier. With any cocoa chips, cocoa peat, any of these cocoa products, make sure you wash it really well before you use it. I tend to soak mine for probably at least 2 weeks with regular water changes, and then towards the end I'll actually start using reverse osmosis water, and I look for under 50 parts per million after soaking for 24 hours. A lot of people do less than that, and it works for them. I haven't tried doing less myself. I just prefer to make sure it's good and safe for my plants before I start potting them up. So, got that sort of centered in the pot now. This picture doesn't want to show it. And I'll just start feeding that in, and I want to try and get it tied in around the roots as much as I can. Of course, you want some air pockets, but the perlite and the shape of the cocoa chips will look after that for you. I might have got this amount of media just about bang on there. It always gets a bit messy. There's always going to be some media on the leaves and probably in the pitcher and everything like that. But for the long-term health of the plant, actually you might not be able to see there, but that pitcher was full of ants. They've all spilled out all over the peristome. And you don't want to pack it in too tight, but I do like to just make sure it's sort of settled. And the last thing I'll do is find my plant tag. I will probably put the date, at least the month and year that I repotted this, just so I know next time when I'm looking at it how long it's been in there. And it might be interesting to see how long it lasts in this size pot before it completely takes over. I can imagine this thing eventually could go into a 50-litre, 60-litre pot and be perfectly happy in there. Oh. So yeah, the last thing is just give it a really thorough soak through. Use this to kind of wash the leaves off, clean them up. And I'll just run that hose through it. You can see there, it's starting to flush out the bottom. It'll wash out any of the dust from the perlite. I do try and pre-wash my perlite a bit, but there's always more. I'll probably come back to that over the next few days and give it a good flush through. And sorry about that, my phone seemed to cut out at the end there. But as I was saying, give the pot a good flush through, and I'll come back and do that a few more times over the next few days to make sure it's well and truly watered in. But there you have it, freshly potted up, and that should be good in this pot for a good few years now. And I'm sure you'll see it in future tour videos. I'll leave it there for you guys. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.